Howdy, and welcome back to the Texas Bucket List. You know, the border has always been sort of a hot topic here in Texas, but for the border cities, it's just a part of everyday life and nothing new. In fact, there's one tract of land in El Paso that John F. Kennedy himself had to negotiate with Mexico over. Today, it's a park and a unique stop on the Texas Bucket List. Along the border between Texas and Mexico is 1,254 miles of every landscape you can imagine. From the lush Rio Grande Valley, the rugged terrain of Big Bend, to the skyline of El Paso. It's in El Paso that you'll find a unique national park right along the border that used to be south of the Rio Grande.
Sometimes when it comes to history, that could be a hard sell for bringing people in. So we also like to think that this place is a living memorial.
J.R. Luan was born between Lubbock and Amarillo in the small town of Muleshoe, but he grew up in El Paso. After a stint with the Peace Corps, he spent the last 12 years at the Chamizal National Memorial.
You might think it's in any other city park because it's definitely an urban park. It's landscaped, but what sets us apart is that we commemorate a historical event, the Chamizal Convention of 1963.
While the 1960s were a long time ago, this story starts 100 years before that as a boundary disagreement after a massive flood.
When we look at a map and we see a river, there's a little line, we tend to forget that that represents a mighty force of nature. So in the 1860s, a big flood caused the Rio Grande to shift in a way that was a little more violent than usual. Rivers are meant to grow, to shrink, to dry out, to flood, to shift back and forth. But not so awesome when that river has also been designated as a geopolitical line between two territories, two private properties, two countries. And so that's what created sort of the confusion. And it all culminated with one little tract of land, the Chamizal, owned by a Mexican landowner that after this spring flood ended up on the US side.
That tract of land was known as Cordova Island.
So all this happened in the 1800s when, like a lot of American cities, El Paso was a boomtown. And so when this piece of territory seemed to show up on the US side essentially overnight, US citizens, Mexican-American citizens, moved onto that tract of land and it was just developed by the city. That piece of land still belonged to someone who petitioned their government to ask the US government to set that right. And so it just became this claim that kind of snowballed into a political football that kind of soured, sort of became a thorn in the relations between the two countries.
That's crazy, for 100 years.
That's right.
Crazy to think this used to be Mexico.
That's right.
When the Cuban Missile Crisis became a prominent issue for the United States, so did border security. And JFK wanted to resolve the border issue in El Paso. So he traveled here to meet with Mexican President Adolfo López Mateos to come to an agreement.
Kennedy started the negotiations. It was a part of his administration, and unfortunately, after his assassination in 1963, it was Lyndon Baines Johnson who, even as a senator prior to being vice president, he was already aware of the Chamizal dispute as a Texan and someone who was already in contact with diplomats in Mexico. And so he had already sort of kind of greased the wheels, and when he was the president, was just made it one of his priorities to see it through. It really was just a culmination of time until the right diplomats, the right incentives, the right culture of, again, trying to make the time and effort to sit down and kind of to make some concessions, to sort of build a compromise where not everybody gets what they want, but everybody gets what they need. So these 27 boundary fence posts are, I think, were built in the 1940s. So these old timers are going on over being 80 years old, but they basically show where the water used to run prior to the Chamizal Convention. And so they delineate the northern perimeter of Cordova Island.
Okay, so this used to mark the northern part of Mexico.
Right, so prior to the treaty, where we're standing would have been Mexican territory.
Okay, and the river was running through here at that time.
That's right. Another good reminder that the landscape could be shaped by natural forces, but also shaped by what we come together and agree those lines to be.
The Chamizal National Memorial isn't a flashy stop on the Texas bucket list, but it's a reminder that in this constantly changing world, being a good neighbor and trying to find common ground is always a good thing.
Part of our mission has always been to sort of celebrate the cultures of the borderland and to very distinctly, again, promote ideas of friendship with our neighbor to the south. It's one thing to view the border from the lens of nightly news. I know those images are very sort of harrowing, but also day to day people are living here coexisting is what it kind of boils down to.
Well, thanks for watching this segment of the Texas Bucket List. To see more, be sure you subscribe to our channel. And to see full episodes, become a member. In the meantime, you can also shop our store at the Texas Bucket List Store and Studio.